In case you haven't noticed, hitters are struggling. Looking all the way back to 2008, this MLB season has brought us the lowest batting average and one of the worst slugging percentages in that 17-year span. The disheartening part is that we saw a slight increase in some key league-wide statistics last season. That was directly after the league implemented a step-off rule, pitch clock, and shift restrictions that had some impact on juicing up offense. Things were looking up, and then this season happened, and we're back to square one. And it's not just that we haven't gotten to the height of offense production in a given season, which generally happens over the summer. 2024 has still shown a decrease in production, even if you just look at the start of every season through June, dating back to 2016. If only hitters had a device to help them, something that could get them to improve against pitchers as quickly as possible. What if I told you that device already exists and that Major League Baseball teams are using it right now? One of the dirty little secrets in baseball is that traditional and even advanced pitching machines don't replicate ball flight one-to-one as to what hitters see in the game. This is because most pitching machines can't impart gyrospin on a baseball. What is gyrospin? Think about true backspin on a fastball. The front of the ball is perfectly spinning towards 12 o'clock on a clock face as it moves towards the plate. Gyrospin is some offset of this true backspin. The ball is still traveling this way towards the plate, but the spin is more like this. If you only have gyrospin, then your pitch looks like a bullet, or what you'd call a bullet slider. It just drops with the force of gravity on the way to the plate. Almost all pitches are somewhere in between true backspin and true gyrospin. Sliders have the most amount of gyrospin on average because this allows them to create a drop. Fastballs have the least amount of gyrospin on average. The most common pitching machines, therefore, can replicate fastball shapes that hitters see in-game better than they can replicate slider shapes. This raises an interesting question. If most pitches have gyrospin, and pitching machines traditionally can't create this gyrospin, then the utility of a pitching machine is to either feel good in the box or on field prior to a game, to work on mechanics, maybe to work on timing, but it's not the utility that we think it is, which is to replicate in-game environments in non-game situations, particularly with sliders. Enter Trajekt. This device launched in 2019 and debuted with a major league team in 2021. The differentiator is that it can create gyrospin on pitches. A year after it was in the hands of its first MLB team, the Chicago Cubs, 7 teams had it. That number was 12 by the start of 2023, and now it's up to 19, according to ESPN's Alden Gonzalez. On top of being able to impart gyrospin on a ball, Trajekt can also dynamically replicate release points and project images of a pitcher onto the device's screen to mimic game environments. The projection idea is cool, but I've heard anecdotally from coaches that motor learning is different when the pitcher is 2-dimensional compared to 3-dimensional. So live ABs will always win. I wonder how important the projection piece really is. It's cool, and the value of it is surely greater than what regular pitching machines provide. I just think the gyrospin component is the most important and interesting piece of this whole puzzle. And I think the nuance of understanding what gyrospin is and why it's so important to replicate in-game pitches has prevented this tech and story from becoming more popular. This most recent offseason, we had another pretty incredible development in this story that I think is relatively undercovered. Major League Baseball started to allow Trajekt to be used in games. If you're a hitter and you want to go see a team's closer before he actually comes into a game, you could do that literally steps from a dugout, minutes before he's on the mound. Previously, Trajekt wasn't allowed to be used in games because it needed Wi-Fi, which is against MLB's in-game tech policy. But according to that really good piece from Alden Gonzalez in ESPN, it's now an offline machine, so MLB has allowed the use of it. Phillies reliever Matt Strahm, in response to a Ken Rosenthal tweet covering this story earlier in the year, expressed displeasure with hitters being allowed to use this device in games. And that's not surprising given he's a pitcher. I totally get it. But I do see some merit to the idea that they should be turned off at game time. I just think that's never going to happen, given the league is doing everything they can to boost offensive production, and it's still not really working. This device matters a lot for the health of MLB hitters because it could play some part in turning the third time through the order penalty into a second time through the order penalty. Combine that with incentives to have pitchers complete 5 or 6 innings in a given start, retain the DH, and you might be able to push back against how quickly pitching development is moving. The third time through the order penalty is fundamental to the sport. If you take Paul Skeens, one of the most electric pitchers in baseball, and split him up by how many times he sees a hitter in a game, even he doesn't miss as many bats as he turns over lineups. Peak Jacob deGrom, 2019, where he posted 9 WAR. He wasn't as good as hitters saw him more in a given game. Hitters adapt. They do that really well. This is proven out in the data, and it's occurred since the beginning of baseball. Trajekt, even if it's not a perfect replacement for live ABs or seeing a pitcher multiple times in a game, should be some kind of accelerant on a hitter's ability to adapt to a given pitcher in a given game. The problem is that it's been really hard to tell if it's having an effect. Since 2022, and we can assume at least more than a quarter of Major League Baseball teams were using Trajekt in some capacity, the difference in the league's third time through the order slug compared to the second time through the order slug has jumped about 10 points compared to the sample prior to 2021. I think to find some objective proof that hitters are getting better via this tech, we actually want to see an increase in slug progressively and a smaller gap between second and third time through the order slug. And we see the opposite of both those happening. But this data is also not isolating off what teams were specifically using the tech. The most telling data might come from the team that's had it the longest, the Chicago Cubs. If we look at their team performance as their hitters turn over pitchers since they got Trajekt, they've been a below league average offense 3 of those 4 seasons. And from a lineup turnover perspective, there isn't much here. It's kind of a roller coaster season to season. Trajekt's effectiveness is an inherently hard thing to prove in data because we don't know who specifically is using it and how they're using it. But it makes too much sense to me to deny that the tool could have some impact if it's used effectively. Like most new technologies, maybe organizations just don't entirely know how to implement it into in-season training versus off-season training, or how to utilize it effectively. Or maybe hitters just don't totally like being challenged this much in season, especially when they have to go out and perform. Maybe it's just going to take some crossover of ideas between different organizations to have more stories bubble to the surface as to how they've used Trajekt effectively. But the crazy out of this world idea that I love related to Trajekt connects to the quality of minor league pitching, which is not good. Eno Saris of The Athletic had a tweet saying that there were 4 pitchers at AAA with above average stuff and locations. 4. That is it. We've seen a ton of hitters come up and struggle in Major League Baseball this year, get set down, come back up, struggle again. Some have found their footing. I think these rookies are just not used to seeing this good of pitching in the major leagues so consistently. We've also seen a lot of guys jump from AA up to the majors, further depleting the stock of good pitching at AAA. And perhaps the messy zone down at AAA had some impact with MLB testing the Robo Zone, which is now converted fully to a challenge system. So maybe there's a chance down the road that position players in the minor leagues don't actually play 6 days a week and instead play 4 to 5 days a week and then take a day or two of Trajekt down in the cages. It seems insane. I get it. Old school people are actually going to freak out at this idea. But if you think about what a major league hitting department's goal is, which is to make major league hitters quickly, probably as quickly as possible, I wonder whether there's something with Trajekt that will help accelerate that. It creates an interesting equation between what's more valuable, live ABs off bad shapes and bad pitching, or not live ABs versus better pitching. I think live ABs are always going to win out because of that 3-dimensional element and visual learning, but I wonder whether seeing shapes that are better and exposing hitters to that will help them accelerate and be better when they get to major leagues. And I think this is particularly true with fringe guys in the minor leagues who maybe the organization doesn't ever think will make it to the majors. That guy is a guy that I would put on Trajekt as much as humanly possible because you're not expecting him to be a major leaguer, so why not try to expose him to really good pitching and see if he advances as quick as possible. Trajekt is an engineering marvel. It's a really valuable tool, and I think major league organizations realize that. I'm just not entirely sure if they figured out how to effectively implement it into training and whether hitters even want to use it to its full capacity. But if either of those items budge over time, I think this device could be a huge accelerant in helping hitters square off and succeed against pitchers who seem to be exponentially improving every single season. So thanks as always for watching this video. Any thoughts on this? let me know, because I'm fascinated in other people's perspective on this topic. This has always fascinated me. This is a video I've been thinking of making for a while, so I hope you learned something from it. Take care.